I would like to call the Jackson County Board of Commissioners meeting for March 20th, 2012 to order. With Ms. Potts, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Phil Duckham, could you please lead us in the invocation?
Yes, sir. Please bow your heads. Let us pray. Lord, give us wisdom tonight and guide us as we conduct business for the citizens of Jackson County. We also pray tonight for Commissioner Pat Smith and her comfort as she recovers from a serious illness. In you we place our faith. Amen.
So the community is aware Ms. Potts is a junior at Jackson Christian High School, as well as being currently dual enrolled at Spring Arbor University as a student. Ms. Potts has volunteered and served for the Jackson Area Youth Council, the City of Jackson Human Relations Commission, the YMCA Youth Summer Program, and her church. The Jackson County Board of Commissioners would like to recognize Ms. Potts for her leadership and skills and willingness to serve our Jackson community by volunteering to lead us in the pledge and showing leadership. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Hurl? Here. Commissioner Lechka? Here. Commissioner Rice?
Here.
Commissioner Duckham? Here. Commissioner Alexander? Present. Commissioner Vidito? Here. Commissioner Mahoney? Here. Commissioner Williams? Present. Commissioner Smith? Commissioner Way? Present. Commissioner Elwell? Here. Chairman Chatwell? Present. 11 present.
At this time, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Support. We have a motion and support. Any removals, questions, or comments or additions? Commissioner Way?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to pull 12A2 off for separate consideration, please.
We will handle that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We will handle that in a moment under the consent
Thank you.
agenda.
Sorry.
I do. Thank you.
Wrong agenda.
Anything else from the commissioners? All in favor of the agenda as written?
Aye.
Opposed? Duly carried. Awards and recognition, we have none at this time. Any communications or petitions, please deliver them to the clerk from the public. Seeing none, we have no special orders or public hearings. At this time, we've arrived at the first opportunity for public comment. Please step forward and identify yourself, and you may speak on public comment at this time. There is a second time to speak at the end of the meeting also.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Peterson, Jackson County resident. I'm on the Board of Lifeways, and I'm here today to hopefully be reappointed when it comes up time in the agenda. So I just wanted to express my thanks for the 12 years that you've had me on that board, and I look forward to serving more. Thank you.
Good evening, John Wilson, City of Jackson resident. Hopefully tonight, Commissioner Elwell would explain to the general public and to his fellow commissioners the pressing need that he believes there is to adopt a policy allowing county employees to carry weapons. And this would be a revision in the workplace violence policy. Anyways, the County Commission's strategic plan now has economic development as its number one priority. If you were to adopt such a policy allowing employees to carry weapons while at work, what would this have to do with economic development? And does this commission believe that as a strategy and with economic development, that by allowing their employees to carry guns, would you be so proud to be the number one, first and only county out of 83 counties in this state to allow such a policy? I don't believe that would have much bearing. If anything, it would be a negative effect to attract and retain business here in this county. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Mark Smith. I'm a resident of Liberty Township. I also want to speak on this, the change you're making in whether or not your employees would have the right to carry concealed weapons while on the job. I myself am a concealed weapon licensee. I carry every day. As a group, concealed carry licensees are the most law-abiding people there are nationwide. They have the fewest problems of any. In Michigan, the number of folks who lose their licenses through some kind of misconduct is a tiny fraction of a percent. These people are very, very law-abiding folk. Now, I presume that the issue at hand is whether or not county employees can carry concealed while on the job. Is that correct? That's the proposal? They would be carrying concealed weapons. This would be a very discreet thing. Personally, I wouldn't mind at all. The folks that get these licenses go through a very extensive background check, fingerprinting, review by the state police, and once again are the most law-abiding folk there are. Secondly, I think we're all familiar with what this is. This is the Constitution of the State of Michigan. Article 1, Section 6, the bearing of arms. Every person has a right to keep and bear arms for the defense of himself and the state. It doesn't specify any particular place or circumstance. We have the right, as citizens of this state, to carry the means to defend ourselves. And people in this state, if they wish to carry concealed, must go through a very lengthy process to obtain that license and keep themselves, if you'll pardon the slang term, squeaky clean if they wish to keep that license. I see no detrimental effect on the county at all if county employees are allowed to carry concealed weapons discreetly while employed and working. These folks all know the places that they cannot legally carry. And they would have to follow the same rules as anybody else. If their job takes them to some area in the county that is prohibited by legislation, they would have to make some arrangement to store the weapon and not take it in there. I believe that passing this resolution is beneficial to all of those folks who wish to carry their own means for defense. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Seeing none, public comment for the first time is closed. Special meetings of standing committees, there are none. Minutes for the 2/21/12 regular meeting of the Jackson County Board of Commissioners. Motion to approve, please.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion and support. Any corrections, deletions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Duly carried. We've arrived at the consent agenda. I have a motion for the consent agenda.
Support.
I have support. Commissioner Way.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll do it right this time. I would like to pull item 12A2 off the consent agenda for separate consideration. Thank you.
The Board of Commissioners will move that item to item 13A1. Call it Policy 3310. Any other items for removal or correction from the consent agenda? Seeing none, let's use our electronic devices to vote, please. Consent agenda passed 11-0. We've now arrived at the standing committees, county policies, chaired by Commissioner David Elwell. Commissioner Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd move county policy number 3310, the workplace violence policy, and I note that it's the modified policy that was placed on each commissioner's desk. I think modified slightly with a few wording changes from the electronic version.
We have a motion and support. Commissioner Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a few comments on it. I start out by saying that contrary to some beliefs, we did not pull this issue or this policy out of the sky. The charge of the policy committee is just that, to review the policies of the county. We typically do 2 or 3 policies every meeting, every month, and this one I think it's been at least a couple of years since it's been modified, and it did in fact follow the typical path. It is noteworthy to mention, though, that as we discussed this policy in committee, it became readily apparent that we have at least probably one person that is classified as an employee, although they're actually an elected official, that would be in violation of it, of the current policy, not the proposed one. It's also been spoken, the question of what's the problem that we need to correct by adopting this new policy, or when has the current policy ever been a problem? And I think that was kind of posed by one of the residents speaking here. I can list about 30 times that it's been a problem at schools in our nation, not so much locally here. And unfortunately, most of those times it's school shootings where everyone is a defenseless victim until the police arrive. They certainly get there as quickly as they can, but unfortunately lives are lost in that gap. On only one of those incidents that I did quick research on did I find that there was an armed employee there. It was a school in Mississippi in 1997. There was a student that came in armed with a rifle. He had previously killed his mother, shot and killed 2 students. Vice principal went to his vehicle, retrieved his pistol, and stopped the shooting. He confronted the student with a gun and held him at gunpoint until the police arrived and arrested him. And if I read the article right, the student was on the way to another school to do more shootings. I don't know what the policy of that school was at the time. It was 97, some time ago. Besides the school shootings, there are other employer-related shootings that we read about, this, but the theme is still typically the same. An ex-employee or other person shows up, goes office to office, killing unarmed and defenseless employees until the police arrive. Unfortunately, God forbid there were ever to be a shooting like this in our county or at one of our facilities. What would you rather have? The employees that want to be able to defend themselves being allowed to, or be in a position of looking back after an event like that, retrospectively wishing that we had allowed this basic right of employees to protect themselves if they so choose and if they had a CPL? I again ask, what are we afraid of? Try and find a news story of an employee that is a CPL holder that is responsible for a shooting at work. I don't think you'll find one. And I think Mr. Smith spoke to that. That group of people as a group is the most law-abiding there are out there. Do we really want to think that if someone wants to come into one of our buildings, for instance our chamber here, where I'm sure there's people that have been here before with a CPL and carrying a gun, If a person wants to come in here with the intent to harm, do we think that they're going to give two hoots about a law or a policy that we have that says employees cannot carry, or that they can't? If they come in here with harmful intent, it's not going to matter to them what the law says or policy says. It might matter to the employees here, but it's not going to matter to them. It's also been said that we would be the first to do this. I believe that that could possibly be in our state, but it's certainly not the case in other states. I did some quick research and found quickly 4 places that have addressed this specific issue. One is Monroe, Wisconsin, which I think was this year. Montgomery County, Texas, also this year, I think. Colorado universities had a case like this go to their Supreme Court. Supreme Court there ruled that students on campus can carry with CPLs. And in the Kansas House, there's a bill that has passed the House and it's awaiting the Senate to deal with this exact issue and allow what we're looking for our employees right now. I got to reiterate that the question was asked by Mr. Smith if this is concealed carry. This is about concealed carry here by employees, not open carry. I think that's kind of a misnomer that people have had the impression of. And when I read one of the recent articles in the local newspaper, they chose to use a picture of a stack of papers with a pistol sitting loose on it. I think they were trying to influence thoughts locally, and clearly that's not the case of what we're allowing. The policy speaks for itself. The administrator has talked about safeguards he would have in place that would prevent things like that. Again, I think this was actually very well covered by Mr. Smith, better than I can, but CPL holders are trained, qualified, screened, and I've said this before that I also trust our HR department here in our administrator's office in hiring level-headed people as staff. And lastly, I think I need to say, if we do not adopt this policy, I said this at the beginning, we are automatically going to have people that are classified as employees in violation of the policy, should we choose to leave it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Way?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I represent parts of Summit Township, Blackman Township, and the majority of Sandstone Township. I also represent and are responsible for all the employees of Jackson County. And when the department heads and elected officials, the bulk of them are telling us, those department heads of Jackson County are telling us that this isn't something that they would like to see in their buildings, in their place of employment. I think I take that seriously, and that's why I'll be opposing this proposed policy. Thank you.
Commissioner Vitito?
Well, I'm not totally against the policy change, but my concern is, and the reason I won't support it tonight, is that I really felt that we should have had information provided to us on those comments and questions that may have arisen from in talking to the department heads and elected officials. And I'm not sure if it should have gone as far as this, but maybe even to a point to allow employees to, to voice any concerns or comments too. I think the department heads and elected officials are the ones that oversee these departments, and I think their comments and also their concerns would have a valid place to be listened to here.
Commissioner Duckham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just kind of got to wonder what we're afraid of here. As our public comment speaker, Mr. Smith, said, the CPL holders are some of the squeakiest clean, most trusted, completely honorable, law-abiding citizens that you're going to meet. And I just fail to see why anybody would want to deprive somebody the right to protect themselves. I have a CPL, and if I'm going to walk Commissioner Mahoney or Commissioner Smith to their car down the alley at night after a meeting, why is it that my right to protect myself and her should be taken away? I would, under this policy, have to wait till I get to my vehicle, unlock my vehicle, and get a firearm to protect ourselves should we be mugged between the front door and the back parking lot. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's sensible. We all took an oath. Every one of us is sworn in to be a commissioner to uphold the laws and the Constitution, la-da-da-da-da. You know the story, where it's going. But it's not optional. You can't pick and choose which ones you want to support on a personal preference. It is the law of the land. It's already been infringed upon by some of the regulations that is in place, but I just, wow, can't believe this. Let's just take it a step further. Let's say we adopt this policy, and we have a high-level elected official, let's just say a judge, come to one of our meetings, and they've been here before. Who's going to go up and tell the judge that with the concealed carry that you can't be here? Who's going to go up, and what are we to do to him if he says, I'm here? What are we going to do to him? I mean, he is an elected official. Are we going to unelect him? Are we going to have him arrested? What is our recourse to an elected official that chooses to exercise his rights? I don't think a judge is probably going to listen to any of us. We're putting ourselves in a very awkward position. I understand there's only less than a dozen of our 480-some county employees that have a CPL to begin with. I think we're making a big issue out of just a small thought when we was correcting this policy. And no, we didn't dig this up to go over, take up time, so we couldn't create jobs, as one of our public speakers thought. This is part of our policy. We actually can concentrate on 2 or 3 things at once here when we form our committees. And we go through the policies, update them, make them more relevant to the times that we live in. If a crazed citizen, whether they have a CPL or not, comes into this chamber while we're hosting a meeting, I don't want to have to crawl under my desk here and hope they run out of ammo before they get to my position. I choose to exercise the rights to defend myself. I don't want to just sit here and cry and pray that they run out before they get to my chair. And that's where we're putting ourselves. Thank you very much.
Mr. Alexander?
Thank you, Chairman Shotwell. It is my belief that by updating our county policy, we are ensuring that law-abiding county employees maintain the same rights that are granted to non-employees as clearly stated in the Second Amendment. My vote is yes.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When first looking at this policy, really thought I would support it. But today I took time to talk to several of our department heads and understand that they are not at all in support of having this policy be changed. Not only did I do that, I called friends of mine at Consumers Energy. They have a very similar policy as the one as it stands now and cannot have concealed weapons within the building. At Allegiance, I'm talking about our largest employers, they have right on the outside of their buildings that you are not allowed to bring a weapon, and they go even further than that and say any other type of weapon other than a gun into their premises. And I really, and my husband carries, I really feel very strongly that if we are going to do this, then I would insist upon having metal detectors at every one of our county buildings as we do at the jail. If this was not an issue, we would not have that metal detection system at our county jail. We are afraid of public people coming in and possibly doing harm. The same possible harm that might be to any of the other departments. And we talked about this when we got ready to put those metal detectors in. But I looked at the shooting instance in Texas in that restaurant when the man came in and shot the 12 people. There were 3 people in that restaurant that had CCWs, or whatever they're called now. They were on the ground trying to avoid being shot. I cannot say for sure whether or not employees would decide to protect themselves and others if we pass this, or whether we would have the same type of situation. I agree with Commissioner Vitito. I really believe that this should have been taken up at a study session, or perhaps we could have had further discussion by, and I understand it went to department heads, but the commissioners should have had an opportunity to hear from them. But I did talk to several people in the general public. They really felt like it would cause them to be frightened in the workplace. I think it would cause people who don't currently have a license to go out and get a license because they don't know who else is carrying. I think all of those things are things that we have to consider, and things that we would not be able to control if we decide to change this policy. I am not going to be able to support it in its current state.
Commissioner Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One point of information that did come across that I don't think has been mentioned, there are at least 8 employees who do have CPLs here in the county, and their indication is that they would carry if given the opportunity. That's the individuals who are maybe being honest. We also know of individuals who carry CPLs who may be on the premises as an employee who may not be following the policy. But we wouldn't know that because those individuals who have the CPLs properly follow the law, keep the weapon concealed. I do not have a CPL. I've taken the classes. Whether or not I get a CPL or not, I'm indifferent to that. But what's important to me is that I have the ability to do that and have the ability to protect myself when and if I choose. Creating a policy that keeps an individual from choosing to protect themselves when they're an honest individual, I think is wrong-headed. If I'm not mistaken, the county building that we're in right now is not a gun-free zone. So individuals who come in and out of this facility, even if there was a metal detector, couldn't be stopped from coming into this facility if the weapon is concealed. But we don't know who's coming into this facility armed or not. And I think it's, again, silly to think that our employees shouldn't have the ability to protect themselves if they choose. The other thing that I think is important to remember, when we first started talking about CCWs at the state level and had the debate and discussion, there were a number of department heads and elected officials here in the county who were also opposed to that. And some of those individuals have come full circle and said they were absolutely wrong in opposing the state CCW legislation. I can't help to think that maybe some individuals might be incorrect about allowing their employees to make the choice as to whether or not they might protect themselves. I'll be voting yes on this policy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been a very difficult decision, I believe, for most of us. I myself, I'm on the county policy committee, and we as a group did forward this to the full board, and the reason that from my perspective that we did that, or I did that, was because what we're doing right now, we're having a discussion. All of us have the opportunity to discuss our views on this. My concern, and continuously looking over this policy, and I can also say that, I can say that I have talked to department heads personally myself. And again, their main concern is safety. I can also say that I have scoured the internet, and there is a multitude of information, both pro and con. And I can also speak to the fact that I've talked to several law enforcement officers who, their concern, and myself being a former police officer, their concern is the fact that, yes, the people have a right to get a CPL, obviously. That's the state law. In fact, I would say that they would even agree with the Second Amendment. But the fact is that once a person, and those with CPLs know this, once you receive a CPL, you really are not required to do any further training if you don't want to. You could potentially take your weapon and not use it, or you may not properly train with it for several years. As a police officer, we had an exercise called Shoot, Don't Shoot, a very important exercise. That exercise allowed us on a regular basis to determine whether or not we were going to pull the trigger or not. And even though it was a sign that you were pulling a trigger at, the sign, the individual either had a gun or didn't have a gun. They had another type of instrument in their hand. And, the concern I have here is, and I really I will shorten this up. The concern I have here is, if you look at, there is restrictions to this. There is regulations. The regulations involve, obviously, where you can carry the guns, and there's several of them that we haven't mentioned. Obviously, in the school rooms, or carrying guns around children on the playground. You can't carry a gun in the dorms, college dorms, or college classrooms. Churches where there's children, you can't carry a gun. And my concern is that we have facilities here. We have the Jackson medical care facility. We have human services. We have the health department. We have a lot of departments where there's children around all the time. And my concern with this policy is this is doing nothing to protect the possibility of a child being injured or killed. And that's, the restrictions we have in the CPLs now, it does that. That's why you can't carry a gun into the school area or churches or in places where there's children. So, again, me personally, I believe in the Second Amendment. Me personally, I have no problem with CPLs. Many of my friends have CPLs, and my family CPLs. Okay, that's not the issue. Again, the issue is this policy. We're talking about every county department, and to me, some of these county departments, there should not be guns carried, just for the fact that I stated there's too many children to go in and out of those places, and this just is not right for some of the departments. I'm not saying all of them, but for some of them. So because of that, I'll be voting no.
Commissioner Hurl.
I'm on the policy committee too. I voted to send this forward because I believe that all of the commissioners should have had a chance to discuss this openly as a board. I'm totally against this because there was a few years back, and I think maybe Commissioner Mahoney remembers this, when this policy was originally written. It's quite a few years ago this happened, but we had a nut running around during the courthouse, and he carried his gun a lot all the time. And nobody trusted him. And finally they let him go. But I just, I think maybe he probably had a CTL at that time too, but nobody trusted him. And this is why I base my decision on this. I will not support this at all, due to that fact. I never applied for CTL. I don't want to. I'm a hunter. I've got guns. but I don't carry them around. And that's my feeling on this, and I will not support this at all. If you want to tote a gun, I guess it's up to you. But I'm not security conscious that way, so that's what I'm going, my vote will be no.
Any other commissioner comments? Any other commissioner comments? We'll use our electronic devices to vote. Policy was defeated 7-4.
Nothing more to report, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
County Affairs and Agency, chaired by Commissioner Dave Lechka. Commissioner Lechka?
Well, according to the agenda, I've got the longest item to take care of, but I hope it doesn't take that long. Tonight we have appointments to various boards. The first one is to the Brownfield Redevelopment Board. We have 3 public members, terms expiring in March 2015, and the committee nominates James Shotwell Jr., Rodney Melling, and Christopher Dimmis.
Have a motion and support. Any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Duly carried.
Next, we have 3 public members appointed to the Economic Development Corporation, terms expiring March 2018. The committee nominates Ron Ellison, James Shotwell Jr., and Timothy Levy.
We have a motion and support. Any nominations from the floor? All in favor? Aye. Duly carried. Commissioner Lechka.
Next, we have 2 public members to the Lifeways Board, terms expiring March 2015. The committee nominates Jeffrey Peterson and Edward Woods.
Any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Duly carried. Commissioner Lechka.
Next item is 1 World War II veteran appointed to the Veterans Affairs Committee, term expiring 2016 in March. The committee nominates Virginia Maitland.
Any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Duly carried. Commissioner Lechka?
No other business, Chairman.
Thank you. Human Services Committee, chaired by Jonathan Williams. Commissioner Williams.
Mr. Chairman, we have no business to come before the board this evening.
Thank you. Personnel and Finance Committee, chaired by Commissioner Jim Vitito. Commissioner Vitito.
Mr. Chair, we have no items to bring forward this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any unfinished business to come before the board? Seeing none, any new business to come before the board? Seeing none, we've returned to the second round of public comment. Please step forward and identify yourself. Any other public comment? Seeing none, commissioner comments. Commissioner Lechka.
I'd just like to thank all the commissioners that showed up to Rural Education Days at the fairgrounds today. We had right around 1,100 third graders that showed up, along with probably 150 chaperones. It was a good day. Even though Commissioner Vitito thinks he's in charge of weather, he was not today. Everybody had a good time and very educational. Thank you very much for your participation.
Commissioner Vitito.
Following along what Commissioner Duckham said during his invocation about Pat Smith, I had an opportunity to go see Pat today, and she asked me to to pass on a hello to all the commissioners. She has some challenges ahead, and she just wanted to know she really appreciates, any comments and calls, and the job right now is keep her spirits up and keep her fighting along. So she wanted me to pass a hello on to all of you, and she misses being here.
Thank you, Jim. Commissioner Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had some questions regarding the resolution supporting the air traffic control tower program. It's an FAA program and slated to be possibly cut. It was within our consent agenda, and I didn't ask for it to be removed. I did have some questions about it in terms of, we're seeking the federal government to rein in its cost and to prioritize, and I was able to get those answers to those questions I had from Kent Maurer, and was satisfied with those questions. So thank you, Kent.
Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, we're adjourned.